Hello everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the Green Couch Reviews. I'm Bastian, and this show is essentially a poorly thought out excuse for me to talk about movies, TV, video games, basically anything that happens to catch my interest. So, without further ado, let's get started with a movie I gladly include in my top 10 favorite things of all time list, the John Frankenheimer spy thriller, Ronin. Released in 1998, Ronin follows a team of freelance covert operatives hired to retrieve a mysterious silver briefcase containing something. We never find out what it is, but ultimately it's not that important, except as an excuse for some sweet-ass car chases and gunfights. Naturally, things get more complicated when what should have been a relatively straightforward heist turns into a free-for-all, as the betrayals pile up on one another and everyone tries to get their hands on the prize, leaving several French cities somewhat worse for wear. Robert De Niro as Sam and Jean Reno as Vincent lead an ensemble cast featuring Stellan Skarsgård, Natasha McElhone, Jonathan Pryce, and Sean Bean in a rare non-fatal role. Now so far this probably sounds like a pretty typical 90s action movie plot, and frankly, you'd be forgiven for thinking so. After all, the idea of a team of X-whatever mercenaries going after a MacGuffin isn't exactly that original. What makes this one special is how it sticks the landing in terms of its execution. Ronin takes an otherwise simple formula and nails it thanks to a top-notch script, great acting, and some absolutely badass action scenes. The movie begins with a short info dump explaining what exactly a Ronin is to the many viewers who couldn't be bothered to watch Yojimbo at least once in their lives. You know who you are. Basically, Ronin were samurai who had lost their masters, either through death or disgrace, and were forced to become mercenaries or criminals to make a living. This was especially prevalent during the Edo period between 1603 and 1868, when these warriors were legally forbidden from seeking out new trades or even new masters due to a rigid class system. Immediately, we can see the film is making a parallel between the Ronin of feudal Japan and the disavowed or demobilized operatives left over at the end of the Cold War in 1991. This is expanded on later in the film, during a conversation between Sam and Jean-Pierre, one of Vincent's contacts who... Wait a minute, isn't that Hugo Drax?
At least I shall have the pleasure of putting you out of my misery.
Huh, guess getting shot out of an airlock into space isn't as lethal as I thought. Anyway, the thematic link between the two eras informs the general atmosphere of the film, a world that has just undergone a massive change in the political climate, leaving those who are unable or unwilling to find a place in the new order to seek employment in the murky underworld where crime and espionage meet. Every character has been affected by this massive shift in the global affairs, from ex-KGB agents turned mobsters to an IRA terrorist denounced by his own organization while they undergo peace talks. Everyone is scrambling to find their place in this new world, hoping that whatever's in the case will help them do so. And that, faithful viewers, pretty much covers all the exposition you're going to get. Seriously, except for some radio chatter at the end, the movie never really gives any detailed explanations or spells anything out for the audience. It's almost as if the screenwriter expected the people watching the movie to use their brains and actually pay attention. You know, as if they were adults. And considering the screenwriter, this shouldn't surprise anyone. Depending on who you ask, David Mamet, under the alias Richard Weiss, either wrote the final draft or, according to director John Frankenheimer, the entire script of the movie. In any case, over the years, Mamet has been responsible for creating some great theater, film, and television, including classics such as Glengarry Glen Ross, The Untouchables, and of course, The Unit. And if you haven't watched The Unit yet, fix that. Otherwise, Dennis Haysbert will track you down, kick your ass, and then sell you car insurance. Maybe not in that order. The overall lack of exposition adds to the rhythm of the movie, keeping things going along at a brisk pace. Moments that wouldn't serve the plot or the characters are simply skipped over, quickly cutting to the next scene without fancy editing tricks and just expecting the audience to keep up. At the same time, the film isn't afraid to slow down and take its time when it needs to. Take, for example, the first scene of the movie. We see Sam approaching the bar where he and the rest of the team are supposed to meet. But instead of just walking in and immediately making contact, he slowly surveys the area, checking out the interior while pretending to read the menu, scoping out the back exit. We could be forgiven to believe he's nothing but a tourist until about 4 minutes in. Yeah, he's not a tourist. Once he finally goes in, he still pretends to be a regular customer, all the while unlocking the back door on his way to the bathroom in case he needs to make a quick exit. It's only when directly confronted that he eventually drops the act and goes along with the rest of them.
The man from Bristol called you.
What man?
The man in the wheelchair.
And no, we never find out who the man in the wheelchair is either. Get used to it. This scene is a great example of the old saying, show, don't tell. We get to know the kind of person that Sam is through his actions. He's patient, he's methodical, and above all, professional.
Lady, I never walk into a place I don't know how to walk out of.
This type of less is more acting is found throughout the entire cast. None of the characters ever really discuss who they are or what their real background is except in the vaguest of terms, leaving just about everything to the imagination. The only exception here is Spence, who is constantly asking the others questions and bragging about his skills. In comparison, he comes across as insecure and inexperienced, which, as it turns out, is precisely the case. But instead of spelling it out, we get this information through the way he acts around the rest of the team, how he gets flustered whenever he's dismissed or contradicted by the more experienced Sam. Hell, his reaction after the ambush with the arms dealers leads me to believe he's never even been in a real firefight before. He's a wannabe, without the skills or experience he claims to have, and is soon exposed as such. Which is interesting since it plays against the usual tough guy roles Sean Bean was generally getting at the time. For such a small role, Sean Bean did a great job communicating who his character was without relying on the kind of exposition-heavy dialogue that all too often plagues bad action thrillers. In fact, I can praise the entire cast for this, and everyone involved brought their A game to their respective parts. Of particular note is the great chemistry between Robert De Niro and Jean Reno. Together, they make up the heart of the film, the camaraderie and respect that their characters build over time, giving the audience someone to care and root for. It doesn't hurt that both are perfectly cast, with De Niro channeling some snarky New York attitude into his ex-CIA badass.
Of course I'm afraid. You think I'm reluctant because I'm happy?
And Reno playing a sympathetic yet more than capable mercenary. Some of the best character moments in the film happen between these two, like when Sam is shot and guides Vincent in the unenviable task of removing the bullet. Ronin is just as much a film about these two men's friendship as it is about exciting car chases. And speaking of car chases... If you're a fan of classic action movies like Bullet or The French Connection, then you are in for a treat because Ronin has some absolutely badass action scenes. Director John Frankenheimer had been an amateur racing driver since his 1966 film Grand Prix, and it shows when you look at what he accomplished here along with stunt coordinator Jean-Claude Lagniez. What also helps is that the actors were really in the cars for most of the scenes, using right-steering vehicles with dummy controls on the left side so that the cast would look like they were driving. And a special tip of the hat goes to Skip Sudduth, the actor playing Larry, who did all his own driving during the film. The chases were all filmed on location in Paris and southern France, sometimes going up to 200 kilometers per hour. The key word here is authenticity. Nothing in Ronin's action scenes was done in post-production or simulated with CGI. The reason the movie holds up so well even today, 15 years later, is because everything was done practically, by seasoned pros at the top of their game. The stunts serve the tone of the film, staying grounded and realistic instead of going over the top for effect. The same goes for the fight scenes. There's no John Woo or Wachowski-style acrobatics or gunplay going on here, no matter how much I enjoy those as well. Just professional killers doing what they do best, regardless of who gets in the way. In the end, the reason I love Ronin so much comes down to how well it fits together. The movie doesn't have any missing elements or needless padding, just a lean, mean espionage thriller that stands tall amongst the very best of the old-school action films. You could even think of it as a kind of transitional film, serving as a link between those classics, like Bullet, for instance, and the modern incarnations of the same, like Taken or the Bourne trilogy. And did I mention it's a Christmas film? So remember, when the holiday season comes around again, gather around the Christmas tree, throw a Miracle on 34th Street on the fire, and watch a 98 Audi S8 Quattro tear through the streets of Paris. I'm Bastian, and I'll see you next time on the couch.